Lyra stood at the large window of the luxury ship Starfall Harmony, watching the stars move slowly past. Her blue skin shimmered under the soft lights of the passenger deck. She was beautiful in the way her people, the Velthari, always were. Tall and graceful, with crystal-like skin that changed color with her moods. But today, her skin was dark blue with worry. Her daughter Naya ran up to her, small hands pressing against the window. At 8 years old, Naya was curious about everything. Her skin was lighter than her mother's, still showing the pale colors of childhood. "Mama, why do the stars look so small?" Naya asked. "They are very far away, little one," Lyra said, putting her hand on Naya's shoulder. "Each one might have planets around it. Maybe even people like us?" Naya smiled. She loved her mother's stories about other worlds and other people. The Velthari were diplomats, peacekeepers who traveled between star systems to help different species talk to each other instead of fighting. "Will Papa join us for dinner tonight?" Naya asked. Lyra's skin darkened more. "I don't know, sweetheart. Papa is very busy with his work." This was not the truth. Lyra knew exactly where her husband Turan was and what he was doing. 3 days ago, she had found files on his personal computer that made her sick with fear and anger. Turan was stealing money. Lots of money. The Velthari had sent relief supplies to a colony that was hit by a terrible storm. Food, medicine, and tools to rebuild their homes. But Turan had been selling these supplies to other worlds and keeping the money for himself. The colony was still waiting for help that would never come. People were dying because of what her husband had done. Lyra had tried to talk to Turan about it that morning. She had shown him the files, the proof of what he was doing. She had begged him to stop, to send the real supplies to the colony. Turan had smiled at her. It was not a nice smile. "You don't understand business, Lyra," he had said. "This is how things work in the real galaxy. The strong take from the weak." "Those people trust us," Lyra had said. "They believe we will help them." "Their belief doesn't make us rich," Turan had replied. That was when Lyra knew her husband was not the man she had married. The man she loved would never let innocent people suffer for money. This Turan was someone else, someone cold and cruel. "I will report this to the council," she had told him. Turan's face had changed then. The fake kindness disappeared, and she saw something dangerous in his eyes. "No," he had said quietly. "You will not." Now, hours later, Lyra held her daughter close and tried to think. She had to find a way to contact the Velthari Council. She had to tell them what Turan was doing. But every communication on the ship went through systems that Turan controlled. She was trapped. "Attention passengers," a voice said over the ships. "Speakers, we will be stopping at Deep Space Station 7 for routine maintenance. All passengers must remain in their quarters during this time." Lyra frowned. This was not on their travel plan. She looked out the window and saw a small space station growing larger as they approached. It looked old and lonely, floating in the darkness between star systems. "Come, Naya," she said. "Let's go back to our room." They walked through the ship's hallways. Most of the other passengers were already in their quarters. The ship felt strangely quiet. Even the crew members they passed would not look at them. Something was wrong when they reached their room. Lyra locked the door and sat down with Naya. She tried to use her telepathic abilities to sense what was happening on the ship. The Velthari could read emotions and sometimes thoughts from other people, but she felt nothing. The ship's mental shields were blocking her. That was very strange. Mental shields were usually only used during war. A few minutes later, someone knocked on their door. "Mrs. Lyra?" "This is Dr. Kale from the medical bay. I need to give you and your daughter some medicine before we dock at the station." Lyra had never heard of Dr. Kale. What kind of medicine? She called through the door. "Just a simple shot to protect you from station germs. It's required by law." Lyra's skin turned almost black with fear. There were no laws like that. She grabbed Naya and moved away from the door. "Mama, what's wrong?" Naya whispered. Before Lyra could answer, the door opened. 2 men in medical uniforms came in. One of them had a small device that shot sleep drugs. "Please, don't make this difficult," one of them said. Lyra tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. She felt the sting of the drug in her arm, and the world began to spin. The last thing she saw was Naya falling asleep in the other man's arms. When Lyra woke up, everything was moving. She was lying on a hard floor and her head hurt terribly. Slowly, she opened her eyes and saw that she was inside a small escape pod. The walls were metal, and there were only a few small windows. Naya was lying beside her. Still asleep, but breathing normally, Lyra sat up and looked around. The pod was old and dirty. Some of the lights were not working, and she could hear strange noises from the life support systems. This was not a good escape pod. This was the kind of pod that ships threw away when they bought new ones. She looked out one of the small windows and saw only stars. No ship, no station, nothing else. They were alone in space. On the control panel, she found a message waiting for her. It was from Turan. "My dear wife," the message said in his voice, "I am sorry that you and Naya were caught in the terrible accident during the solar storm. The ship's emergency systems put you in an escape pod, but sadly the pod was damaged. We searched for you for many hours but found nothing. You will be remembered as heroes who died trying to help others." Lyra stared at the message. Turan was telling everyone that they were dead. He had murdered them and made it look like an accident. She tried to send a message back, but the communication system was broken. She tried to change the pod's course, but the navigation was not working either. Everything important had been damaged on purpose. The pod was dying around them. Just like Turan wanted, Lyra checked the life support systems. They had air for maybe 3 days if they were lucky. After that, they would slowly suffocate in the darkness between stars. She looked at Naya, who was starting to wake up. "Mama?" Naya said in a small voice. "Where are we?" Lyra touched her daughter's face gently. "We're on an adventure, little one, a very difficult adventure." She did not tell Naya that they were probably going to die. She did not tell her that Papa had sent them away forever. Instead, she held her daughter close and tried to think of a way to save them. But in the cold darkness of space, with their pod systems failing one by one, hope seemed very far away. Kangwoo was not having a good day. His salvage ship Iron Will was 3 weeks behind schedule. The coffee maker was broken again, and the job that was supposed to make him rich had turned out to be a pile of useless scrap metal. He sat in his pilot chair, drinking cold coffee from a metal cup and staring at the star charts on his screen. "Maybe I should have listened to my mother," he said to himself. "She wanted me to be a teacher." Wu was 35 years old, with black hair that was always messy and clothes that had seen better days. His ship was small and old, held together with spare parts and stubborn human engineering. Most people would call it junk, but Wu loved every rusty bolt and worn-out wire. He was alone out here, weeks away from the nearest human colony. This part of space was empty and dangerous, full of radiation storms and broken ships. Only salvage crews like him came here, looking for valuable things that other people had lost or thrown away. The job he had just finished was supposed to be easy. A rich merchant had lost a cargo ship full of rare metals. The insurance company hired Wu to find it and bring back whatever he could. But when he found the ship, pirates had already taken everything worth having. All that was left was twisted metal and empty cargo boxes. Wu sighed and started entering coordinates for the journey home. It would take 2 weeks to reach the nearest spaceport, and he would barely make enough money to pay for fuel. That was when his computer made a soft, beeping sound. Wu looked at the screen and frowned. His sensors had picked up something small, about 50 kilometers away. The signal was very weak, almost too quiet to notice. "What are you?" he asked the screen. He turned his ship toward the signal and increased the sensor power. The computer took a few minutes to figure out what it was. Looking at then showed him the answer: emergency beacon. Escape pod. Life signs detected. Wu sat up straight in his chair. An escape pod out here? That was impossible. No passenger ships came to this part of space. It was too dangerous, too far from help, but the computer did not lie. Someone was out there, and they were still alive. Wu forgot about his schedule. Forgot about his money problems, forgot about everything except the people who needed help. This was what humans did. When someone was in trouble, humans came running, even when it was dangerous. Even when it made no sense. He pushed the engines to maximum speed and flew toward the signal. 20 minutes later, he found them, the escape. Pod was old and broken, drifting slowly through space like a metal coffin. Most of its lights were dark, and Wu could see damage all over the outside. This pod should have been thrown away years ago. No one should trust their life to something so old and broken. But someone had, and now they were dying inside it. Wu brought his ship close and used the docking tube to connect to the pod's airlock. The connection was rough because the pod was spinning slowly, but Wu had done this kind of rescue before. Humans were good at fixing problems. Even when those problems were trying to kill them, he put on his emergency suit and opened the airlock. The first thing that hit him was the smell. The air inside the pod was thin and bad, full of the smell of fear and failing machines. The second thing he noticed was how cold it was. The pod's heating system was barely working. In the dim light, he saw them. 2 aliens lay on the floor of the pod. They were tall and thin, with skin that looked like blue crystal. The larger one was a woman, as she was holding a small child against her chest. Both of them were unconscious, and their breathing was slow and weak. Wu had never seen aliens like these before, but he did not care what species they were. They needed help, and he was the only one who could give it. He checked the woman first. Her pulse was weak but steady. Her skin was cold, much colder than it should be. The child was in worse shape, barely breathing at all. "Okay," Wu said to himself. "Let's get you two out of here." Moving carefully in the low gravity, he picked up the child first. She was light, maybe 20 kilograms, with skin that felt like smooth stone. He carried her through the docking tube to his ship and laid her on his medical table. The Iron Will had a small medical bay. It was not fancy, but it had everything Wu needed to treat injuries and sickness. Humans had learned long ago that space was trying to kill them in 100 different ways, so they always carried good medical equipment. He went back for the woman. She was heavier, maybe 60 kilograms, but still light enough for him to carry. As he moved her to his ship, she opened her eyes for a moment and looked at him. Her eyes were large and dark, full of fear and confusion. "It's okay," Wu told her, even though she probably could not understand him. "You're safe now. Back in." His medical bay, Wu worked quickly. The woman and child were suffering from oxygen starvation and cold. Their body temperature was too low, and their blood was not carrying enough oxygen to their brains. Wu had seen this before in human accident victims. Space was cold and cruel, and it killed people slowly if their life support failed. But humans had learned how to fight back. He put oxygen masks over their faces and slowly warmed their bodies with heated blankets. He gave them medicine to help their blood carry more oxygen. These were simple treatments, the kind that any human rescue worker would know, but they worked. After an hour, the woman opened her eyes again. This time she stayed awake. She looked around the medical bay with confusion, then saw Wu standing beside her. She tried to say something, but her voice was too weak. Wu gave her some water and waited. "My daughter," she finally whispered in a language his computer did not recognize. Wu pointed to the other medical table, where the child was sleeping peacefully under warm blankets. "She's okay," he said. "You're both okay." The woman's eyes filled with tears. She tried to sit up, but Wu gently pushed her back down. "Rest," he said. "You need to get strong again." The woman looked at him for a long time, studying his face. Wu knew he probably looked strange to her. Humans were not the prettiest species in the galaxy. They were short and stocky, with hair in weird places and skin that came in different colors for no good reason. But the woman smiled at him. It was a weak smile, but it was real. She pointed to herself and said something that sounded like Lyra. Wu pointed to himself. "Kang Wu," he said. Lyra nodded and pointed to the sleeping child. "Naya, nice to meet you, Lyra and Naya," Wu said over. The next few hours, Wu took care of his new passengers. He made sure they had warm food and clean water. He checked their breathing and temperature every 30 minutes. He did not know anything about their biology, but the basic rules of keeping someone alive were the same for most species. Don't let them get too cold. Make sure they can breathe. Give them food and water. Keep them calm and safe. These were things humans had learned from thousands of years of taking care of each other. It did not matter if you were human or alien. Life was life, and it was precious. While Lyra and Naya recovered, Wu studied the escape pod they had come from. The damage was worse than he had thought. Someone had deliberately broken the navigation system and the communication equipment. The life support had been set to fail slowly, so it would look like an accident. This was not a malfunction. This was murder. Wu looked back at Lyra, who was now sitting up and feeding her daughter small pieces of bread. Someone had tried to kill this woman and her child. They had put them in a broken pod and sent them into space to die slowly, but they had made one mistake. They had not counted on a stubborn human salvage pilot finding them. Wu smiled grimly and began plotting a course to the nearest space station. He had found something more valuable than any cargo. He had found 2 lives that needed saving, and he was going to make sure they stayed saved. Lyra woke up for the 3rd time in 2 days, and for the first time in weeks. She felt safe. The human ship was small and cramped, but it was warm and full of light. Strange music played softly from hidden speakers, something with guitars and drums that sounded happy and wild. The walls were covered with pictures of a blue and green planet that must be the human homeworld. Naya was already awake, sitting at a small table and eating something that looked like sweet bread. The human, Kang Wu, was showing her how to use the food heating machine. You press this button, Wu was saying, speaking slowly and using simple words. Then you wait, the machine makes the food hot. Naya pressed the button and giggled when the machine made a humming sound. Her skin was bright pink with happiness, much brighter than it had been in months. Lyra sat up slowly. Her body still hurt. The terrible cold was gone. She felt stronger than she had since waking up in that horrible pod. "Good morning," Wu said when he saw her. He had learned a few words in her language, though his pronunciation was terrible. "How dialing?" "Better," Lyra replied in his language. The ship's computer had been teaching her human words while she slept. "Thank you," Wu smiled. Humans had strange faces, but their smiles were easy to understand. This one was warm and kind, the smile of someone who was happy to help. "Come eat," he said. "Food is good for healing." Lyra joined them at the small table. The bread was sweet and soft, nothing like the food her people usually ate, but it tasted wonderful. Wu had also made something he called soup, which was hot and salty and made her feel warm inside. While they ate, Lyra studied the humans. Ship. Everything was old, but well-maintained. The walls were covered with patches and repairs, but each repair was done carefully, with pride. This was not a rich ship, but it was a love ship. What impressed her most were the safety systems. Everywhere she looked, she saw backup plans for backup plans. Extra air tanks in case the main system failed. Emergency lights that would work, even if the power went out. Medical supplies stored in 3 different places. Humans, she realized, expected things to go wrong. So they prepared for everything they could think of, and probably some things they could not think of. "Your ship is very safe," she told Wu. He looked surprised. "Safe? This old thing? Most people think it's junk." "Your people always prepare for problems?" Wu shrugged. "We have to. Space is dangerous. Our planet is dangerous. Everything is trying to kill us, so we learn to be ready." Lyra thought about this. Her people's ships were beautiful and elegant, full of advanced technology that almost never broke. But when something did go wrong, they usually had to call for help. This human ship was ugly and old, but Lyra suspected it would keep working even if half of it was destroyed. "Mama," Naya said, switching to their own language. "Can I ask him?" "About his home?" Lyra nodded. Naya was curious about everything, and making friends with the human would help her recover from their terrible experience. "Kang Wu," Naya said carefully in human language. "Your planet ... what is it like?" Wu's face lit up. He loved talking about his home. "Earth is beautiful," he said. "Blue oceans, white clouds, green forests. but also very dangerous. He showed them pictures on his computer. Lyra gasped when she saw images of massive storms, with lightning that could split trees and winds that could destroy buildings. There were pictures of earthquakes that broke the ground open and volcanoes that threw fire into the sky. "This is where you grew up?" Lyra asked. "Yes, Earth taught us to be strong. When bad things happen, we fix them and keep going." Naya pointed at a picture of a huge wave, taller than buildings. "People live here? Billions of people," Wu said proudly. "We learned to build strong houses and warning systems. When the big waves come, we know where to go to be safe." Lyra was amazed. Her homeworld was peaceful and calm, with weather that never changed much. The Velthari had never needed to develop the kind of stubborn toughness that humans had, but that toughness had saved her and Naya's lives over the next few days. As they traveled toward the nearest space station, Lyra learned more about humans and their strange place in the galaxy. They were not the strongest species. The Corven were much stronger. They were not the smartest. The Zephyrians had better technology. They were not the fastest or the most beautiful or the most advanced. But they were the species that other people called when everything went wrong. "Why?" Lyra asked Wu one evening. They were sitting in the ship's small lounge, watching the stars go by. "Why what? Why do other species ask humans for help? What makes you special?" Wu thought for a long time before answering. "Maybe because we don't give up," he said finally. "When other people say something is impossible, we say, let's try anyway. When other people run away from problems, we run toward them. That sounds dangerous. It is dangerous. Lots of humans die doing stupid things. But lots of other people live because we do those stupid things." Lyra understood then. Humans were not special because they were better than other species. They were special because they chose to help even when it was hard, even when it was dangerous, even when they got nothing in return. "Is that why you saved us?" she asked. "I saved you because you needed saving," Wu said simply. "That's what you do when you find someone in trouble." Naya, who had been listening quietly, suddenly spoke up. "In our stories, we have people like you. We call them heroes." Wu laughed. "I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy with a junk ship who happened to be in the right place." But Lyra disagreed. She had met many powerful people in her job as a diplomat. Politicians and generals and business leaders who commanded fleets and ruled planets. None of them had risked their lives to save two strangers. This guy with a junk ship had done something that most people would not do. He had seen two dying aliens and decided their lives were worth saving. He had not asked what species they were or whether they could pay him. He had simply helped because help was needed. That night, as Naya slept in the spare bunk, Lyra told Wu the truth about what had happened to them. She explained about her husband's crimes, about the money he had stolen, about the people who were suffering because of his greed. Wu listened without interrupting. When she was finished, he was quiet for a long time. "He tried to kill you to protect his secret," he said finally. "Yes, and he will tell everyone that we died in an accident. No one will ever know what he did." "Maybe they will," Wu said. "Humans are good at finding the truth. We ask questions, we look for evidence, we never stop until we understand what really happened." "You would help us prove what Tehran did?" "Lady, someone tried to murder you and your little girl. Of course I'll help you prove it." Lyra felt tears in her eyes. This human barely knew her, but he was willing to risk his life to help her get justice. "Why?" she whispered. Wu looked at her with surprise. "Because it's the right thing to do. It was that simple to him." Right and wrong were not complicated ideas. When someone was hurt, you helped them. When someone did evil things, you stopped them. When someone needed justice, you fought for them. Lyra had spent her life in the world of diplomacy, where everything was complicated and nothing was simple. But sitting in this small human ship, watching Wu care for her daughter with gentle hands and a kind heart, she remembered what it felt like to believe in simple good. Humans, she realized, were not complicated people. They saw the world in clear colors, right and wrong, help and harm, hope and despair. And they always chose to stand on the side of right, even when it was dangerous, even when it was hard. Even when they were just one person with an old ship against the vast darkness of space. Tomorrow they would reach the space station, and then the real work would begin. Lyra would have to prove that her husband was a criminal and a murderer. She would have to face powerful people who might not believe her, but tonight she felt safe and strong. Because she was not alone anymore. She had a human friend, and that meant she had someone who would never give up on her, someone who would fight for what was right, no matter what the cost. Turan stood in his new office aboard the diplomatic ship Unity's Voice and smiled at his reflection in the polished window. In the 3 weeks since his wife and daughter had died, his life had become much easier. The Velthari Council had promoted him to Senior Trade Coordinator, giving him control over even more relief supply contracts. The other diplomats treated him with sympathy and respect, believing he was a tragic figure who had lost his family in a terrible accident. If only they knew how much planning that accident had taken. Turan was not like other Velthari. Most of his people believed in service and sacrifice, in helping others even when it cost them. Turan believed in helping himself. The galaxy was full of wealth and power, and he intended to take as much of it as he could. The colony relief program had made him rich. Instead of sending food and medicine to suffering planets, he sold those supplies to wealthy worlds that paid top prices. The dying colonists never knew their help had been stolen. They just waited and hoped while Turan's bank accounts grew fatter. Lyra had been the only one who could have stopped him. Her position as a senior diplomat gave her access to the financial records. Her stupid sense of honor would have driven her to expose him, but dead wives could not cause problems. Turan was reading reports about new relief contracts when his assistant knocked on the door. "Sir, there's a message for you from the Corvan Border Authority." Turan frowned. The Corvan were warrior merchants who controlled several star systems near the Galactic Rim. They were useful for certain types of business, but they usually did not contact him directly. "Send it through." The message was from Captain Vex, a Corvan officer who sometimes helped Turan with difficult problems. His ugly face filled the communication screen, all gray skin and sharp teeth. "Turan," Vex said without any greeting, "we have a problem. One of my patrol ships detected a human vessel asking questions about Velthari passengers in Sector 7. Turan's blood turned cold. Sector 7 was where he had dumped Lyra and Naya's escape pod. "What kind of questions?" he asked. "The human was at Deep Space Station 7, asking if any Velthari had been there recently. He said he was looking for survivors of an accident. That's impossible." "There were no survivors." Vex's expression did not change. "Maybe, but humans are persistent little creatures. If there's even a chance someone survived, they'll keep looking." Turan began pacing his office. The escape pod had been sabotaged carefully. The life support was supposed to fail slowly, making it look like a malfunction. Even if someone found the pod, there should have been nothing left but bodies. But what if the pod had been found before the life support failed? What if Lyra and Naya were still alive? "I need you to investigate this," Turan told Vex. "Find this human. Find out what he knows. That will cost extra. I don't care about the cost. If there are survivors, they must be eliminated quietly. Make it look like pirates or engine failure." Vex smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Understood. Send me the details of the supposed accident. I'll track this human and see what he's found." After the communication ended, Turan stood quietly in his office, thinking. If Lyra was alive, she would try to contact the Velthari Council. She would tell them about the stolen supplies and his attempts to murder her. He could not let that happen. Turan activated his personal communication system and sent a priority message to the council. In the message, he reported that he had received disturbing news about potential survivors of his family's accident. He claimed that criminals might be impersonating his dead wife and daughter to steal Velthari resources. It was a clever lie. If Lyra did try to contact the council, they would think she was a fraud trying to take advantage of his grief. 3 days later, Vex contacted him again. "I found your human," the Kovan said. "His name is Kang Wu, operates a salvage ship called Iron Will, he's been asking questions at 5 different stations about Velthari refugees. Has he found anything? That's where it gets interesting. 2 days ago, he filed a formal request for Velthari diplomatic protection for 2 passengers. Female adult and child, names listed as Lyra and Naya. Tehran felt like he had been punched in the stomach. They were alive. His wife and daughter had survived, and now they were under the protection of some stubborn human who would not mind his own business. Where are they now? Unknown. The human ship disappeared from sensor range yesterday. But I have contacts. Throughout this sector, I'll find them. When you do, kill them all. The human too. Make it look like an accident. It won't be cheap. Humans are tricky to kill. They have backup plans for their backup plans. I'll pay whatever it costs. Just make sure none of them survive to talk. Tehran ended the communication and sat down heavily in his chair. This was becoming more complicated than he had planned. But he had come too far to give up now. Meanwhile, aboard the Iron Will, Kong Wu was having his own problems. The space station where they had stopped for supplies had been full of Korvan traders, asking questions about his passengers. The station master, a nervous little alien, had warned him that Korvan warships were patrolling the area. They're looking for someone, the station master had whispered. Someone traveling with a human. You should be careful. Wu had thanked him and left immediately. The Iron Will was fast for an old ship, but it could not outrun military vessels. He needed to find somewhere safe for Lara and Naya, somewhere the Korvan could not follow. Are we in danger? Lara asked. She was sitting in the co-pilot's seat, watching the stars through the forward window. Naya was asleep in the passenger area. Maybe, Wu admitted, someone is looking for you. They're using Korvan mercenaries. Tehran, Lyra said quietly. He knows we're alive. Then we need to be smarter than him. Humans are good at that. Wu had been thinking about their situation for hours. Tehran had money and influence, and he was willing to hire killers to protect his secrets. But he had made one big mistake. He had picked a fight with a human. Humans did not give up. When someone tried to hurt innocent people, humans got angry. And angry humans were very dangerous. Lyra, Wu said. I need to know everything about your husband's crimes. Every detail, every piece of evidence you found. Why? Because we're not just going to run and hide. We're going to destroy him. Lyra looked surprised. You want to fight someone that powerful? He has ships, soldiers, connections throughout the diplomatic corps. He has all that, Wu agreed. But I have something he doesn't. What? I have the truth. And I have a promise I made to myself when I found you in that pod. What promise? Wu's face was hard as stone. That whoever tried to kill you and your daughter would pay for it. All the way. Over the next few hours, Lyra told Wu everything. She knew about Tehran's operation. The stolen supplies, the false records, the colonies that were still waiting for help that would never come. Wu listened carefully and took notes. His human mind worked differently than Lyra's. Where she saw a complex web of corruption and politics, he saw simple problems that could be solved with evidence and determination. We need proof, he said when she was finished. Documents, recordings, witnesses, things that can't be argued with. Those documents are all on Tehran's personal systems. We can't get to them. Maybe we can't, but I know people who can. Wu activated his long-range communication system and sent a message to someone called Professor Kim at a place called New Seoul University. Who is Professor Kim? Lyra asked. My sister. She's a computer expert. If anyone can crack Tehran's systems, it's her. You're going to involve your family in this? Lyra, when humans care about someone, we don't fight alone, we fight as a pack. That night, as the Iron Will traveled through empty space toward a rendezvous point Wu had chosen, Lyra lay awake thinking about what the human had said. Her people were individuals. They worked together when necessary, but they believed in solving their own problems. The idea of asking family members to risk their lives for strangers was foreign to her, but humans were different. They formed bonds that went beyond blood and species. They adopted strangers into their families and treated their friends' problems as their own problems. Turan thought he was fighting one human salvage pilot. He had no idea that he had declared war on something much more dangerous. He had declared war on a human family. And human families did not lose fights when their children were in danger. The asteroid field looked like a graveyard of broken moons, chunks of rock floating in the darkness like ancient tombstones. Kong Wu guided the iron will carefully between the larger pieces, using their bulk to hide from the Corvan warships that were hunting them. How many ships? Lyra asked, watching the sensor display with worried eyes. 3 that I can see, Wu replied. Maybe more hiding behind the big rocks. They had been running for 2 days since Wu's sister had cracked Turan's computer systems. Professor Kim had found everything they needed. Financial records showing the stolen relief supplies, communications with black market dealers, even the orders to sabotage Lyra and Naya's escape pod. But getting the evidence had been expensive. The Corvan had tracked the hack back to its source and were now hunting the Iron Will with military precision. They're very good at this, Wu admitted, watching 3 warships move through the asteroids like hunting wolves. Better than I expected. We should surrender, Lyra said quietly. Maybe if I give myself up, they'll let you and Naya go. Wu looked at her like she had suggested they all jump out the airlock. Lady, do you know anything about humans? I'm starting to learn. Then you should know that we don't abandon our friends, ever. In the passenger area, Naya was sitting on the floor, playing with a small toy that Wu had made for her from spare parts. She was trying to be brave, but Lyra could see the fear in her daughter's pale blue skin. Mama, Naya said in their own language, are the bad people going to catch us? I don't know, little one. Kong Wu won't let them hurt us, will he? Lyra looked at the human, who was studying his instruments with the kind of intense focus she had only seen in master craftsmen. His ship was damaged, his enemies outnumbered him, and any reasonable person would have given up by now. But Wu was not reasonable, he was human. No, Lyra told her daughter. He won't let them hurt us. Contact from the lead Corvan ship, Wu's computer announced. Put it through, Wu said. The face that appeared on the screen was gray and scarred with the kind of eyes that had seen too much violence. Human vessel, this is Captain Vex of the Corvan War Fleet. You are harboring criminals wanted for fraud and theft. Surrender now, and you will not be harmed. Wu leaned back in his pilot chair and smiled. It was not a nice smile. Captain Vex. This is Kang Wu of the salvage ship Iron Will. The people you're hunting are under human protection. Back off, Vex's expression did not change. You are 1 small ship against 3 warships. Do not make this harder than it needs to be. You know what your problem is, Captain? You don't understand humans very well. I understand humans perfectly. You are weak and soft, good only for fixing machines and asking annoying questions. Maybe, Wu said. But we're also really good at one other thing. What is that? Surprising people. Wu cut the communication and turned to Lyra. I need you. To do something for me. What? Take Naya to the emergency shelter in the back of the ship. There's food and water there, and the walls are reinforced. No matter what happens, don't come out until I tell you it's safe. What are you planning? Something stupid that might work. Lyra wanted to argue, but she could see the determination in Wu's eyes. This was not a discussion. This was a human making the kind of decision that had made his species famous throughout the galaxy. The kind of decision that said, I would rather die fighting than live kneeling. Lyra took Naya to the emergency shelter and sealed the door. Through the small window, she could see Wu working at his control panel, his fingers dancing over switches and buttons like a musician playing a complex song. Computer, Wu said, activate all emergency beacons. Full power all frequencies. Warning, broadcasting on all frequencies will reveal our position to hostile vessels. I know. Do it anyway. Computer, prepare to dump all data files into emergency. Storage pods include everything we have on Turan's crimes. Warning, ejecting storage pods will significantly reduce our data backup capacity. I know, do it anyway. Computer, set self-destruct timer for 10 minutes. Authorization code Bravo 7 Alpha. Warning, self-destruct will destroy this vessel and all aboard. I know. Do it anyway. Lyra felt her heart stop. Was Wu planning to kill them all rather than let the Corvin capture them? But then she saw what he was really doing. The emergency beacons were not just calling for help. They were broadcasting the evidence of Tehran's crimes on every communication frequency in known space. Every ship, every station, every colony within 50 light-years was receiving detailed proof that a high-ranking Velthari diplomat was a thief and murderer. The storage pods that ejected from the ship carried copies of all the evidence, programmed to broadcast continuously until their power ran out. Even if the Corvin destroyed the Iron Will, the truth would keep spreading. And the self-destruct timer was not meant to kill them. It was bait. Captain Vex, Wu broadcast on an open channel, I've just sent proof of Tehran's crimes to every government in this part of the galaxy. Your boss is finished. You are bluffing. Check your sensors, Captain. Those storage pods are broadcasting everything we found. Financial records, communication logs, even the orders to kill Lyra and Naya. It's all there. There was a long pause. Then Vex's voice came back, much colder than before. It does not matter. Dead witnesses cannot testify. True, but here's the thing, Captain. I've also activated my ship's self-destruct. In about 8 minutes, this ship and everyone on it will be scattered across this asteroid field. You would kill yourself and the aliens to spite us? Maybe I'm counting on something else. What? The fact that you're not actually a monster. Another pause, longer this time. Explain. You're a soldier, Captain. A professional. You follow orders because that's your job. But the orders you're following came from a man who tried to murder a mother and her child. Are you really willing to die to protect someone like that? The Coven honor their contracts. Even contracts with child killers? Lyra watched through the small window as Wu waited for an answer. His hands were steady on the controls, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. He was betting everything on his ability to find the conscience of a warrior he had never met. It was a very human thing to do. 7 minutes to self-destruct, the computer announced. Captain, Wu said quietly, I've read your service record. 20 years in the Corvan fleet. Decorated for bravery in 3 wars. You've saved more lives than you've taken. How do you know my service record? Because humans are very good at finding information when we need it. You're not a killer, Vex. You're a protector. That's why your people made you a captain. 6 minutes to self-destruct. Look at the evidence I broadcast, Wu continued. Really look at it. Tehran stole food from starving children. He sold medicine that could have saved thousands of lives. He tried to murder his own wife and daughter to cover up his crimes. Is that the kind of man you want to die protecting? 5 minutes to self-destruct. The communication channel was silent for a long time. Lyra held Naya close, wondering if these would be their last moments alive. Then Vex's voice came back, and it sounded different, tired, angry. Human vessel, this is Captain Vex. Cancel your self-destruct. Can't do that, Captain. The timer is locked in. Only way to stop it is to shut down the ship's main reactor, and that would leave us dead in space. 4 minutes to self-destruct. You're insane. Maybe, but I'm right, and you know it. Another long pause. Then Vex said something that changed everything. Corvan Fleet, this is Captain Vex. Stand down. Repeat, stand down. We are no longer pursuing the human vessel. Captain, came a voice from one of the other ships. Our orders were clear. Our orders came from a criminal, Vex replied. I will not dishonor the Corvan fleet by carrying them out. 3 minutes to self-destruct. Captain Vex, Wu said, thank you. Do not thank me yet, human. Cancel that self-destruct before we all die for nothing. 2 minutes to self-destruct. Wu's fingers flew over his controls. Computer, cancel self-destruct. Authorization code? Bravo 7 Alpha 9, self-destruct cancelled. Lyra felt her legs give out with relief. Wu had done it. Somehow, impossibly, he had turned their enemies into allies with nothing but words and stubborn human courage. 1 minute, Naya whispered. We were going to die in 1 minute. But we didn't, Lyra said, holding her daughter tight. Because humans don't give up. Even when it seems impossible, they find a way. Through the window, she could see Wu slumped in his pilot chair, exhausted by the stress of the last few minutes. He had risked everything on his belief that even a Corvan warrior could be reasoned with, and he had been right. That was the most human thing of all. 6 months later, Lyra stood in the great hall of the Velthari, council on the capital world of Serenity Prime. The walls were made of living crystal that sang softly in harmony with the thoughts of those present. Usually the crystal sang with calm, peaceful tones. Today it rang with anger. The evidence is overwhelming, Council Leader Itan said, his ancient voice carrying clearly through the hall. Turan of the Fifth House is guilty of theft, fraud, attempted murder, and crimes against the galaxy's innocent peoples. Turan stood in the center of the hall, his hands bound with energy restraints. His blue skin had turned almost black with rage and fear. Around him, 12 council members sat in judgment, their faces hard as stone. I was protecting our people's interests, Turan said desperately. The relief supplies were being wasted on worlds that would have died anyway. I found better uses for them. You found profitable uses for them, Counselor Myra corrected. While children starved on worlds that trusted us to help them. Lyra watched from the witness area, holding Naya's hand. Her daughter had grown taller. In the months since their rescue, and her skin showed the healthy pink glow of a child who felt safe and loved. Next to them sat Kang Wu, looking uncomfortable in the formal clothes that Lyra had bought for him. The human had never been in a place like this, surrounded by beauty and ceremony. But he had insisted on attending Turan's trial. I want to see justice done, he had told Lyra. For you, and for all the people he hurt. The council finds the accused guilty of all charges, Itan announced. Turan of the Fifth House, you are sentenced to life imprisonment on Exile Station, where you will spend your remaining years helping to rebuild the worlds you harmed. It was a harsh sentence by Velthari standards. Lyra's people rarely used violence or revenge, but they believed strongly in making amends for wrongdoing. Turan would spend the rest of his life doing the kind of honest work he had spent years. Avoiding Dot as the guards led Turan away, he looked directly at Lyra. This is not over, he said quietly. You have made enemies today? No, Lyra replied calmly. You made enemies when you chose greed over honor. I just helped them find you. After the trial, the council met privately with Lyra, Naya, and Wu. They gathered in a smaller chamber decorated with paintings of Velthari history, scenes of diplomats bringing peace to warring worlds. Lyra of the Third House, Itan said formally. The council wishes to offer you a new position. We want you to lead our new human relations department. Lyra was surprised. A whole department? Recent events have shown us that we do not understand. Humans as well as we should, Counselor Myra explained. We see them as useful but primitive. We did not realize they could be so resourceful, Wu snorted with laughter. Resourceful! That's a nice way to put it. Your species has a unique way of solving problems, Itan continued. When faced with impossible situations, you find solutions that no one else would consider. We believe the galaxy would benefit from closer cooperation between our peoples. What would this job involve? Lyra asked. You would travel to human worlds, study their methods, and teach other species how to work with them more effectively. You would also help humans understand galactic politics and diplomacy. Lyra looked at Wu, who shrugged. Sounds like important work? Someone should probably explain to the galaxy that humans aren't crazy, we're just very determined. I accept, Lyra said, but I have one condition, name it. Kang Wu becomes my partner in this work. He has taught me more about humans in 6 months than I learned in 20 years of diplomatic contact. Wu looked shocked. Me? I'm just a salvage pilot. I don't know anything about diplomacy. You know everything about diplomacy, Lyra said firmly. You know how to find common ground with people who don't trust you. You know how to make enemies into friends. You know how to fight for what's right without destroying what's good. Plus, Naya added with a grin, you're the best human we know. Itan nodded approvingly. The council agrees. Kongwu of Earth, will you accept the position of Special Advisor for Human Relations? Wu was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. My mother always wanted me to have a respectable job. I guess this counts. 1 year later, Lyra stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic station New Hope, watching ships from dozens of species dock at the massive structure. The station was the first of its kind, designed to bring together humans and other galactic civilizations for peaceful cooperation. The Corvan delegation just arrived, Naya reported, looking up from her communication panel. At 9 years old, she was already showing the diplomatic skills that would make her a valuable council member someday. How is Captain Vex? Lyra asked. He says the food here is terrible, but he's excited about the new trade agreements. Lyra smiled. Vex had become an unexpected ally after the events in the asteroid field. His decision to disobey orders and protect innocent people had made him a hero among the Corvan. He now commanded the fleet that protected humanitarian supply convoys, making sure that relief supplies actually reached the people who needed them. And the human delegation? They're arguing about the best way to organize the emergency response protocols, Naya said. Kang Wu is trying to explain why they need 17 different backup plans for each plan. Only 17? He's becoming more reasonable with age. Wu entered the observation deck carrying a data tablet and wearing the expression of someone who had been trying to explain quantum physics to particularly stubborn children. How are the talks going? Lyra asked. The Zephyrians think human emergency planning is excessive, Wu said. They want to know why we need backup plans for our backup plans. What did you tell them? I told them about the time my ship's engines failed, and then the backup engines failed, and then the emergency landing system failed, but I still managed to land safely because I had packed extra landing thrusters in the cargo bay just in case. Did they understand? They asked me why I had packed extra landing thrusters. And I told them it was because space is trying to kill us and we refuse to make it easy, Lyra laughed. It was the same conversation she had been having with various alien species for months. Most galactic civilizations had advanced technology that rarely failed. They could not understand why humans always assumed everything would go wrong, but slowly they were learning. The new emergency response protocols being developed at the station combined human preparedness with alien technology. When the next disaster struck somewhere in the galaxy, the response would be faster and more effective than ever before. Speaking of disasters, Wu said, I just got a message from the Outer Rim. Colony ship Star's Dream has gone missing near the Void Nebula. Lyra felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came with news of people in danger. How long have they been missing? 3 days. No distress signal, no debris, nothing. The search and rescue ships can't find any trace of them. The Void Nebula interferes with most sensor systems, Lyra said thoughtfully. That's why no one goes there. Exactly. Which is why they're asking for human help. Us? Us. Apparently, the galaxy has decided that when people disappear in impossible places, humans are the ones to call. Lyra looked out at the stars, thinking about the 1,000 people aboard the missing colony ship, families looking forward to new homes on a distant world. Children like Naya, full of hope and dreams. When do we leave? She asked. Tomorrow morning? I've already prepared the Iron Will. She's not pretty, but she's the best ship for this kind of work. What about the diplomatic conference? I talked to the other delegations. They think this is a perfect test of the new human-alien cooperation protocols. If we can find the Star's Dream, it'll prove that our methods work. Naya looked up from her tablet with shining eyes. Can I come? I want to help find the missing people. Lyra started to say no, then stopped. Naya had already seen more danger in her short life than most people faced in decades. But she had also learned the most important lesson that humans could teach. When people needed help, you went to help them. Yes, Lyra said, you can come, but you follow orders without argument. I promise. That night, as they prepared for another impossible mission, Lyra thought about how much her life had changed. A year ago, she had been floating in a broken escape pod, waiting to die in the cold darkness of space. Now she was part of something bigger. A new alliance between species that had never trusted each other before. A partnership built on the simple human idea that no one should suffer alone when help was possible. It would not be easy. There would be more emergencies, more disasters, more people who needed saving. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of things that could go wrong, but that was exactly why the galaxy needed humans. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because they were the ones who showed up when things went wrong. They were the ones who refused to give up. Even when hope seemed impossible, they were the ones who saved. People like her and Nia, not for reward or recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. As the Iron Will departed New Hope Station the next morning, heading toward the dangerous unknown of the Void Nebula, Lyra felt the familiar mixture of fear and excitement that came with human adventures. Somewhere out there, 1,000 people were waiting for rescue. They probably thought they were alone, forgotten, doomed to die in the darkness. But